Look, I need to tell someone this because I'm going crazy keeping it all inside, and everyone else just keeps telling me what I did wrong, instead of understanding my side. I'm Lucy, I'm 28, and my entire life just exploded because of some lying witch who couldn't stay in her lane. Everyone's acting like I'm the villain here, but they weren't living my reality. They didn't see what I saw, didn't feel what I felt when those messages showed up on my phone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 6 years with Julian, 4 years married, 2 beautiful daughters. Mila, who's 3, and Harper, who just turned 1. I thought we had this perfect little life figured out. Julian had his office job, nothing too exciting, but it paid the bills and kept us comfortable in our starter home. I stayed home with the girls because that's what made sense, especially with childcare costs being what they are. Most days I loved it, getting to watch them grow and hit their milestones. But honestly, some days I felt like I was drowning in goldfish crackers and Bluey episodes, while Julian got to have actual adult conversations and bathroom breaks whenever he needed them. The thing about Julian is he's always needed his outlets. Can't just work and come home like a normal person. He had to have his weekend yoga classes at the gym, said it kept him balanced or whatever. Every other Saturday morning, he'd kiss me goodbye, while I'm still in my pajamas with baby food in my hair, telling me he'd be back in a couple hours. Those couple hours always stretched longer because he'd stay to chat with people or grab coffee. Meanwhile, I'm home managing 2 kids under 4 by myself, dealing with Mila's attitude and Harper's constant need for attention. But here's what gets me. I supported it. I actually encouraged his little Zen hobby because it seemed to make him happy. And when Julian was happy, our whole house ran smoother. He'd come home from those classes all relaxed and affectionate, more patient with the girls, more helpful around the house. It was like he needed to go play enlightened yoga instructor to remember he wanted to be a husband and father. Kind of sad when you think about it, but I figured everyone has their thing. Our routine was solid, though. His classes every other Saturday, family time on Sundays, date nights maybe once a month when my sister could watch the girls. Nothing Instagram-worthy, just normal married with kids life. I posted about it sometimes. Pictures of him pushing Mila on the swing, all of us making pancakes on weekend mornings, the girls in matching outfits. Got decent likes, made our life look as good as it felt most of the time. I remember thinking our biggest problems were him leaving dishes in the sink and me having to remind him twice about taking out trash. Real, groundbreaking marriage issues, right? He'd come home from work, play with the girls while I finished dinner, help with bedtime routine, then we'd collapse on the couch with Netflix until one of us fell asleep. Weekends were errands, playground visits, grocery runs, and his yoga thing. I thought we were doing pretty damn good for parents of 2 tiny humans. The girls absolutely worshipped him, which was sweet but also irritating because Mila would always run to Daddy first when he walked through the door. I'm the one who spent all day with her, dealt with her tantrums, read endless bedtime stories, but Julian shows up and suddenly I'm invisible. Harper was still little enough to be happy with whoever was holding her. But even she'd light up when she heard his keys jingling outside. Sometimes I wondered if they'd even notice if I took a weekend away, or if they'd just have more fun with the parent who didn't have to be the bad guy about vegetables and screen time. But that felt like normal marriage stuff, you know? The honeymoon phase was long over. We were deep in the parenting trenches, and this was just what real life looked like. Comfortable, predictable, maybe not as exciting as it used to be, but stable. I had everything I thought I wanted. A devoted husband, healthy kids, a nice home, financial security. I had no clue that some random woman was about to come along and destroy everything I'd built, all because she couldn't handle the fact that not every man was available for her to collect. 2 months ago, this fitness influencer started showing up to Julian's yoga classes. I didn't think much of it at first because new people came and went all the time. Julian mentioned her once or twice, said she had a decent following and was really into the meditation side of things. Fine. Whatever. I figured she'd lose interest like most people do when they realize yoga is actually work and not just an Instagram opportunity. But this one was different. This one had plans. Her name was Vivian, and she had about 20,000 followers on Instagram. Not exactly famous, but enough to feed a pretty big ego, apparently. Julian told me she'd asked to take a selfie with him after class one day, said she wanted to give him and the gym a shout-out for organizing such great sessions. Seemed harmless enough, maybe even good for his reputation as an instructor. I was actually proud that someone with a platform wanted to promote his classes. Shows what I knew about women like her and their real motivations. But then Julian came home that same day looking uncomfortable, which wasn't like him. He sat me down and told me what really happened during that photo session. Apparently, Miss Fitness Influencer had taken 3 different selfies, and in the last one, she'd randomly kissed him on the cheek without any warning. Just went for it like she had every right to put her lips on my husband. Julian said he immediately made it clear he wasn't interested and that it was inappropriate, but the damage was done. Some strange woman had kissed my husband, and now I had to figure out how to deal with that. I appreciated that Julian told me right away instead of hiding it, but I was still furious. Who does that? Who thinks it's okay to kiss someone else's husband, especially someone they barely know? I kept thinking about how, if the roles were reversed and some random guy had kissed me without permission, Julian would have lost his mind. But because it was a woman doing it to him, somehow it was just awkward, instead of completely out of line. The double standard was already starting to eat at me, though I tried to push it down and focus on the fact that Julian had handled it right and been honest with me about it. What I should have done was told Julian to ban her from his classes, right then and there. Any gym would back up an instructor who felt uncomfortable with a student's behavior. But I didn't want to seem like the crazy jealous wife, and Julian said he'd made his boundaries clear, so I figured that would be the end of it. I trusted my husband to handle his business, and I trusted that this woman would get the message and move on to someone more available. Shows how naive I was about the kind of person we were dealing with. Because Vivian wasn't the type to take no for an answer gracefully. She was the type to see rejection as a challenge, and my husband as a prize she was determined to win, no matter who got hurt in the process. I just didn't know it yet. All I knew was that some influencer had overstepped with Julian, he'd shut it down, and now hopefully we could get back to our normal, peaceful life. But normal was about to become a thing of the past, and peaceful was going to seem like a luxury I'd taken for granted. A few days later, I got a follow request on my social media from someone I didn't recognize. When I checked the profile, it was her. Vivian had somehow found my accounts and wanted to connect with me. The audacity was unreal. She kisses my husband without permission, and now she wants to be social media friends? I denied the request immediately, but something about the whole thing felt calculated and weird. Why would she want to follow me unless she was trying to keep tabs on Julian's family situation? I started paying closer attention to her online activity after that, which maybe I shouldn't have done, but I couldn't help myself. Within a few days of me rejecting her follow request, she changed her profile picture to one of those selfies with Julian, the one where she'd kissed his cheek. So now anyone who looked at her profile would see her with my husband, like they were together or something. It was manipulative and gross, but also smart in a twisted way. She was staking a claim publicly while making it look innocent to anyone who didn't know the context. That's when I decided I needed to handle this situation myself. Julian was clearly too nice to shut it down properly, and this woman was obviously not getting the message. So I did something I'd never done before. I showed up to one of his yoga classes unannounced. I waited until the session was over, watched her try to linger and chat with Julian, and then I approached her directly. I kept my voice calm and my words polite, but I made it crystal clear that she needed to leave my husband and my family alone. No more photos, no more social media games, no more inappropriate behavior. To her credit, she seemed to get the message. Her profile picture went back to a normal selfie within a day, and I thought that was finally the end of our Vivian problem. Julian wasn't thrilled that I'd confronted her. He said he could handle his own students and didn't need me fighting his battles. But I could tell he was relieved that she'd backed off, even if he wouldn't admit it. Sometimes you have to show people you're not going to be walked over. And sometimes that requires the wife to step in and make things clear. For a few weeks, everything seemed to go back to normal. Julian continued his classes. Vivian apparently continued attending them, but she kept her distance and stopped with the social media nonsense. I stopped checking her profile obsessively and focused on my own life again. I actually started to feel a little silly about how worked up I'd gotten over what was probably just a misguided attempt at networking or friendship. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe she really was just trying to promote the gym and had poor boundaries. Maybe Julian was right that he could have handled it without me getting involved. But that peaceful feeling didn't last long. Because Vivian wasn't done with us, not by a long shot. She'd just gotten smarter about her approach. Instead of coming at Julian directly, she was going to come at our marriage from the side, in a way that would make me question everything I thought I knew about my husband and turn me into the weapon she'd use to destroy my own family. And the worst part is, it worked exactly like she planned. The text message that changed everything came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was home with the girls. Harper was napping, Mila was having quiet time with her tablets, and I was finally sitting down with a cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. It was from Vivian. Somehow she'd gotten my number, which should have been my first red flag. The message said she felt guilty about hiding the truth from me, and that there were things about Julian I needed to know. My stomach dropped immediately, but I couldn't stop myself from reading more. She said she'd been wrestling with her conscience for weeks, that she cared about me and the girls too much to let Julian keep lying to me. Then came the screenshots, message after message between her and Julian, talking bad about me, making plans to meet up, saying things about our marriage and our sex life that made me feel sick. The messages looked completely real. They had Julian's number, his way of texting, even inside jokes between us that somehow she knew about. There was no way I could have known they were for fake, especially coming from someone who'd been so friendly to me over the past few weeks. Reading those messages felt like getting punched in the stomach over and over again. Julian calling me clingy and boring, saying he was only staying for the kids, making plans to hook up with Vivian after his classes while I was home with our daughters. Complaining about our physical relationship, about how I'd let myself go after having babies, about how he needed someone who understood him better. Every insecurity I'd ever had about our marriage was right there in black and white, apparently confirmed by my own husband's words. I confronted Julian the second he walked through the door that evening. I was shaking with rage and hurt, demanding to know how he could do this to me, to our family. He denied everything immediately, said he'd never sent those messages, never said those things about me. But his denials just made me angrier, because the evidence was right there on my phone. I accused him of deleting the messages from his own phone to cover his tracks, of being a coward who couldn't even own up to his betrayal when caught red-handed. The fight escalated faster than any argument we'd ever had. I said terrible things to him, things I can't take back now. I told him he was pathetic, that I'd wasted the best years of my life on someone who didn't deserve me, that he was a horrible father for doing this to our kids. I was screaming at him while Mila huddled upstairs and Harper cried in her crib, but I couldn't stop myself. All the anger and hurt and betrayal was pouring out of me, and Julian was just standing there taking it with this shocked expression, like he couldn't believe what was happening. When I told him to get out of our house and never come back, when I said I was filing for divorce and he'd never see Mila and Harper again, something changed in his face. He stopped trying to defend himself and just stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he said, okay, if that's what I wanted, he'd go. He didn't beg or plead or try to explain anymore. He just went upstairs, threw some clothes in a bag, kissed the girls goodbye while they cried, and asked why Daddy was leaving, and walked out the door. That night, I called Vivian to get more details about the affair, to find out how long it had been going on, and what else Julian had said about me. But when I pressed her for specifics, when I asked questions that didn't quite add up, she started stumbling over her answers. Details changed, timelines didn't match, And finally she broke down and admitted the whole thing was fake. She'd fabricated every single message, used some app to make fake screenshots, all because she wanted Julian and thought if she could break us up, she'd have her chance with him. The relief and horror hit me at the same time. Relief that Julian hadn't betrayed me, that our marriage wasn't the lie I'd thought it was. But horror at what I'd done, what I'd said, how I'd destroyed everything over fake messages from a woman who wanted to steal my husband. I immediately called Julian, begging him to come home, apologizing for everything I'd said and done. But the damage was already done, and I was about to learn just how badly I'd miscalculated everything. Julian came home the next evening, but only to see the girls. He played with them, helped with dinner and bedtime, but he barely looked at me. When Mila and Harper were asleep, he headed for the door again. I tried to stop him, tried to explain about Vivian's lies, but he just listened quietly and then said he needed time to think. The man who'd never raised his voice at me, who'd always worked through our problems together, was completely shut down. I could see in his eyes that something fundamental had broken between us, and I didn't know how to fix it. That was 2 months ago, and Julian still hasn't really come home. He shows up every day after work to spend time with the girls, helps with their routines, takes them on weekend outings, but he's treating our house like a daycare center where he visits his kids. He's polite to me, civil even, but there's this wall between us that wasn't there before. When I try to talk about us, about working through this and rebuilding our marriage, he just says he's still processing everything and changes the subject back to the girls. I've tried everything I can think of to fix this. I've written him letters explaining how sorry I am, how I was manipulated and scared and reacted badly. I've made his favorite meals, suggested couples counseling, even tried to physically initiate affection, but nothing works. He accepts my apologies politely, eats the food, says therapy might be good someday, but he doesn't engage with me the way he used to. It's like he's going through the motions of being my husband for the girls' sake, but emotionally he's already gone. The worst part is that I can see he's actually happier now, in some twisted way. He's more relaxed during his visits, more present with the girls, like he doesn't have the stress of managing our relationship anymore. He started working out more, updated his wardrobe, even changed his haircut. When he leaves our house each night to go back to wherever he's staying, he doesn't look sad or conflicted. He looks relieved. And that terrifies me more than anything else, because it means maybe the fake messages just revealed truths about our marriage that I wasn't ready to face. I know I messed up. I know I should have trusted Julian over some woman I barely knew. I know I said unforgivable things and made threats I had no right to make. But I also know that I was set up, manipulated by someone who wanted to destroy my family for her own selfish reasons. Julian acts like my reaction was completely unreasonable, but he wasn't the one who saw those messages, wasn't the one who felt like everything he believed about his marriage was a lie. How was I supposed to react when faced with what looked like proof that my husband was cheating on me and talking trash about me behind my back? Everyone keeps telling me I need to give Julian space and time, that eventually he'll forgive me and we can work through this. But I can see the truth in his eyes every time he looks at me now. He's not processing our fight or working through his hurt feelings. He's figuring out how to leave me while still being a good father to our daughters. And the most devastating part is that I handed him the perfect excuse to do it. I gave him permission to walk away by showing him exactly who I become when I'm scared and angry and hurt. So now I'm stuck in this limbo, playing the role of devoted wife and mother, while my husband treats me like a roommate he's too polite to argue with. I'm supposed to be grateful that he still comes around, still helps with the kids, still maintains the appearance of our family for everyone else's sake. But I know what I've lost, and I know it's never coming back. The man who used to hold me when I cried, who made me laugh until my stomach hurt, who looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world. That man is gone, and I'm the one who killed him. What makes it even worse is that Vivian got exactly what she wanted in the end. She didn't get Julian. He wants nothing to do with her either after what she did. But she destroyed our marriage, just like she planned. And now she's moved on to whatever her next target is, while I'm left dealing with the aftermath of her manipulation. She faced no consequences for her lies, no punishment for deliberately trying to break up a family with 2 small children. She just walked away from the chaos she created like it was no big deal, probably laughing about how easy it was to turn me into my own worst enemy. I lie awake at night, wondering what would have happened if I'd handled things differently. If I'd shown Julian the messages and asked him to explain instead of immediately assuming the worst. If I'd remembered that he'd never given me any reason not to trust him in 6 years together. If I'd considered that someone who'd already shown inappropriate behavior might not be the most reliable source of information about my husband. But I can't go back and change what I did. And Julian can't unhear the things I said to him that night. The hardest part is seeing how this affects Mila and Harper. They know something's wrong, even though we try to keep things normal for them. Mila keeps asking when Daddy's going to sleep at home again, and I don't know what to tell her. Harper reaches for Julian every time he tries to leave, like she senses that something's different about these visits. They're too young to understand what's happening, but they're not too young to feel the tension and confusion in their world. I've lost the love of my life, the father of my children, my best friend and partner, all because I couldn't see past my own insecurities and fears long enough to think clearly. I let a manipulative stranger get inside my head and turn me into someone I don't recognize, someone who could threaten to keep a man away from his own children just to hurt him. And the worst part is that Julian will probably never trust me completely again, even if we somehow manage to rebuild our marriage. I've shown him who I really am when things get hard, and that's not someone he wants to be married to. So here I am, 28 years old, with 2 babies and a husband who's already mentally divorced me, trying to figure out how to live with the consequences of the worst decision I've ever made. Everyone tells me time heals all wounds, that Julian will come around eventually, that our love is strong enough to survive this. But I can see the truth in his eyes every time he looks at me now. Some things can't be forgiven, some words can't be taken back, and some trust once broken can never be fully repaired. I just have to figure out how to live with that knowledge and try to be the best mother I can for my girls, even if I'll never be the wife Julian deserves again.